guys, and welcome back to another episode of The Boss Seat. Today we have a super special guest. Jaylen, go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's up, everybody? Thank you for having me, Sierra. I'm Jaylen LaGrande. I'm the founder of 316 Collection. I like to think of it as the dopest kingdom apparel line on the planet. I'm also a six-time author, a global speaker. I've spoken in 6 countries, and I'm a serial entrepreneur. Been an entrepreneur since I was 11 years old.
Wow, 11 years old?
11 years old, yes.
Well, you started early. Tell me a little bit about what even sparked your interest in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so I've always just kind of had a natural inclination when it came to entrepreneurship and commerce and just building things. So as a kid, when people asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I always said I wanted to be an architect. And I like to think that, in a way I am an architect. I'm designing and blueprinting different businesses and really being a trailblazer in the business world. So when I was 11, it was the weirdest thing. My mom and dad asked me what I wanted for Christmas. And for some reason, I had the Office Max catalog, and I was like, I want a glass top desk and a printer. And they were like, you want what? And I was like, I want a glass top desk and a printer. And so I remember waking up Christmas morning. This was like 2003. 11 years old, and they bought me a glass top desk and a printer and a file cabinet, and I thought I was like the big boss. And I started a business called Jay's Card Designs, and I was designing business cards, flyers, all those different things. And not to date myself of age, but back then, like Photoshop and all of that was like, out of reach for people like me. And so I designed everything on Microsoft Publisher. But I would like go to church, and everybody who had a business, I would just walk up to them and be like, hey, I make business cards. Can I make your business cards? I think I was charging like $20 for 200 cards, and I would make $100 and feel so rich. Especially, before that I was selling candy at school, more of the hustle stuff. But I just loved creating. And so creating led me to becoming an entrepreneur.
I love that. I love that. You really did start early. A lot of people, sometimes you hear about the selling the candy after school, but you have like a legitimate business.
Yes, yes.
That is awesome. And so your parents were pretty supportive of that.
They was as supportive as they knew how. I think that both of my parents have like entrepreneur in them. But unfortunately, especially in our community of color, like a lot of times, especially our parents' generation, like they have these ideas and they have all these things and they don't really know how to go about it. And I think like they embraced it as much as they knew how. But I will say, like, I kind of saw their fears starting to even like pour and trickle down into me. And so like when I went off to college and everything, it was like, okay, I know you got businesses and stuff, but you need to get a job and you need to, pay your way through college and do all these things. And so I remember even when I first moved to Texas in 2000 and I think it was 11, to go to college up in Lubbock. I went to apply to work at Lifeway Christian Store, and that was the first time I applied for like a real job. And I remember sitting in the interview, I didn't really know what to talk about. I had no experience or nothing like that. And I remember the guy looking at me and he was like, you're not fit to work here. And I was like, okay. And, kind of the Detroit in me, we talked back a little bit. I was like, it's okay, buddy. I'm going to start my own business. And I was joking, but I really believe I was speaking that into existence because literally a year later, I opened up my first store in the mall. I was 19 years old. I had literally 38 cents to my name. And I remember going to the mall telling them I had this really dope concept to open like a Christian t-shirt store in the mall. And they were like, okay, well, it's going to cost $15,000 and all this stuff. And I was like, I don't have any money. And she was like, well, what do you mean? Like, it costs money to get in the mall. And I was like, can I like meet with y'all board or whoever makes the decisions? And so this lady was like, they're not going to do that. A day later, I get a call and she's like, the board said that they would meet with you, but I don't really know what this is all about. And so I went and I just presented my idea and they were like, well, how are you going to do this? And I was like, look, I just need y'all to take a chance on me. Give me the smallest space y'all have. Give me a kiosk, whatever you got, and take a chance on me. And the lady looked at me and she took a chance on me. And so I opened up with 4 dozen of shirts, 38 cents in my bank account, literally to the degree on my opening day. I didn't even have a car. I had to ask my auntie for a ride to my own store. And then I had to borrow $150 from her just so I could have change in the register. And I remember that first day I sold nothing. And I was like, oh my God, I owe these people money. I don't know how I'm going to make it through this. Like, all that doubt started seeping in. Maybe my mom was right. Maybe my dad was right. Maybe I should get a job. Maybe I should, do the regular thing. Maybe I'll go work at Target or Walmart or something. But on that second day, I remember this bus came into town and they stopped at the store and they literally bought out everything I had. And so that's when I learned to take that hustle and to turn it into business. You know how when you sell the candy, you sell it and then you take that money and reinvest it. So I reinvested the money I sold those 4 dozen of shirts from, and I rushed more shirts. And from that day forward, 11 years ago, I've been in this game ever since.
Wow. That's amazing because I never really knew the backstory behind the 316 collection and your journey. And it's funny because a lot of entrepreneurs will say, well, you know what, I can't start because it's not the right time. I don't have the money. I don't have the resources. And so just to hear that you, I guess just the resourcefulness.
Yes.
And really taking that chance and just asking, right? The worst thing that they could have said is no.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. I mean, what advice could you give someone who is starting with, minimal money in the bank account right now, but they have a vision, they have a dream?
I would say that the biggest currency that we have as entrepreneurs, one is faith, but the next thing I believe is creativity and courage. I think that a lot of people, they can believe all day, but then they don't tap into their creativity. Damon John wrote a book. It's an amazing book called The Power of Broke, and he talks about like how powerful, being broke is, because I can even attest to that. Like, as I grew in my business and money started coming in, I started making dumb decisions. Like, sometimes money makes people make dumb decisions because they think they can just buy their way out of everything. But when you're broke, it's going to force you to be creative. Like, I mean, I think about how, and we laugh about this. My grandma passed away in 2020, and like one of the most hilarious stories I have is one time she was trying to buy groceries and all those things, and she didn't have the money to buy groceries. So she made us this dish, and me and my sister and my cousins, we ate it up, and we're like, what is this, Grandma? And she was like, it's sausage medley. And we like, what is sausage medley? But she had literally cut up like 20 different types of sausages that she found in the freezer and made it into this dish. And I remember like a year later, we asked her for it again. She was like, what are y'all talking about? But I realized in that moment she had to be creative and just use what she had. And so my advice would be like, whatever you have is what you need to start. As you progress forward, the other resources will come. And a lot of people, they sit around waiting for investors. They sit around waiting for people to sow into them. They sit around waiting for people to give them something. But what I've learned, like I've had people bless me in ways I can't even explain. I mean, like, you've probably seen the stories. I've literally had people come up to me and write me checks for $40,000. I mean, like, crazy stories. But what the recurring thing is, every person that has ever been a blessing to me, they were elevating what I was already doing. Like, somebody's not going to come and start for you. You have to start, but they're going to come and they'll, put the icing on top of that. And so if they see you working toward it, then they'll come in and they'll help you kind of like maximize that. But nobody's going to come and pour into something that's not already being started. And so I think a big piece of advice I would have is know what you need. One, a lot of us have these like fantasies of like, oh, I want to start this business, but we're not even clear on what we need. And we're not clear on the why we need it. A lot of times when you have conversations with people who want to invest or people who want to help you out with your business, they want to know exactly what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And you telling them, hey, give me a couple weeks to figure it out, it shows you're not ready. I remember every time I ever needed an investor or every time I ever needed something to take me to the next level, I knew exactly what I wanted so that I could articulate that to them so that it would be no question what I was going to do and how I was going to, cause that to maximize.
So having that clarity
is
really key.
Absolutely.
In your mission and even just your plan in general within your business.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
I love that. How did you come up with the entire concept of 316 Collection?
So for the first 5 years, I actually had a business called Religious Expression. So that's the store I started in the mall. And I believe that was kind of my season of like not really believing in myself. So we had, Christian stores like Lifeway and Mardell and family Christian stores. And so I had like maybe 2 designs in my store of my own. But I started like Googling and trying to like duplicate what I saw Lifeway doing, so trying to duplicate what I saw Mardell doing. So I would literally go to these stores because I'm really good at reverse engineering. I would go to these stores, see what they're selling, see what SKUs are selling the best. And I would like see, okay, I found out how to find the wholesalers on stuff. And I would like, look at certain labels and tags and be like, oh, this is their wholesaler. And I would call and set up accounts. And eventually I was selling millions a year of everybody else's clothing line. I mean, like all the cheesy Christian T-shirts. And I remember I started getting frustrated because I'm like, I'm making money, but I'm not like, I don't feel like I'm really accomplishing my mission. I feel like unsatisfied. Like the money's there, but the passion and the purpose is absence. And so after, God has his way of, really waking us up, my store flooded in February of 2015. I lost everything. So I rebuilt that whole year. That was the first time that, I really had to like go through a challenge and really have courage. I rebuilt everything. And right after everything was back to normal, it was December of 2015, like 8 or 9 months later, stuff is starting to finally look back on track. And then the store floods again. And this time the roof collapses. And I mean, like, it was just like, okay, like, God, what are you trying to show me? What are you trying to say? And so I remember I was frustrated, but that frustration drove me to doing something greater. And so in that moment, I was like, I could take this insurance money, I could rebuild Religious Expressions, or I could take an opportunity to really take a chance on myself. And I think a lot of times, like, when you're a trailblazer, what you're trying to do is not done already. I mean, that's why you're blazing a trail. And so, I spent 6 years almost doing what I saw everybody else doing, but I had to say, all right, I'm going to take a chance on myself. And so that's how 316 was birthed in 2015, through 2 floods, through losing everything. I said, you know what, I'm going to take a chance on myself. I'm going to design my own clothes. So I designed like 4 T-shirts. I packed up a 28-foot U-Haul, moved from Lubbock to Dallas, which is like a 5-hour drive. And I opened up my first 316 store in the Willow Bend Mall here. And that opened up the doors for Stonebriar and Galleria and all these other things. And then that later led to, wholesaling and working with some of the biggest mega churches in the U.S., like Potter's House and Joel Osteen, Lakewood, those types of things. And, really building that online presence. Not to fast forward too much, but yeah, that was really the key to, stepping up and going further. It was just a beautiful thing.
But that's awesome to hear that. Most people would have quit after 2 floods and the roof caving in. I would have just been like, maybe this is not for me, So that's really amazing to hear. How does it feel now? Because I feel like your brand is known. I mean, I've seen celebrities wearing your brand. I've seen just random, like I'll be scrolling on Instagram, like, oh, I know that jacket, right? Like, I know that sweatshirt. But how does it feel now knowing that you've gone through so much?
I think it always serves as a reminder that I did the right thing, that, regardless of the storms and challenges and tests, that, I was in the right place fighting for the right thing. Because I think sometimes we feel like we're fighting aimlessly. And even now, we've scaled to multi-millions a year and all of that. And sometimes I still wake up like, I give up. I don't want to do this. I want to be normal. I mean, being an entrepreneur is just like a roller coaster. I mean, it's like you have super good days and then you have super bad days. I remember asking my therapist, I was like, how come I feel like every time I have a major accomplishment, it's followed by a major low? And, she kind of shed this like whole light on like sometimes as entrepreneurs, we're so busy, following like, the next accomplishment that we don't know how to like sit and like thrive in the balance. It's like we are always looking for that next thing, but we have to learn to be content because sometimes we don't realize like we're living in what we prayed for 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And sometimes we just get greedy, especially with social media. Like it causes us to see what everybody else is doing and we get caught up in these vanity metrics. Even last year, or this year, we had a couple rough months this year, with everything going on and all the algorithms and stuff messing up, and our sales started lowering. And I'm like, oh my God, I got all these employees on payroll. I got rent. I got all these. Right. And I was kind of getting stressed. And I remember calling my investor, one of my mentors, and he was like, Jaylen, I have a serious question for you. He was like, how much did you do last year? I was like, only $2 million. He was like, only $2 million. I was like, but I wanted to do 5. He was like, why? And I was like, well, because I had to really catch myself like, I don't really know why. I mean, maybe because I saw somebody else brag about $5 million. And he was like, let me ask you a question. He was like, at the time I was 28. He's like, you're 28 years old. He said, if you make $2 million a year and you pay yourself $250,000 of that, he's like, that's a good life, right? I mean, like, that's a real good life. He was like, and on top of that, you have other businesses. You have all these other things. He was like, the thing about it is most people don't realize once you scale past $2, $3, $4, $5 million, it's a whole different weight. There's companies out here making $10 million a year, but their net profit is $10,000. And so I think social media causes us to be in this place where we're caught up in vanity metrics. It's like this person posted a screenshot saying, I made $100,000 today, but how much of that did you keep? You know, oh, I made $1 million this year, but what was the net from that? Like, if you made $1 million, but your bank account is still negative, you really didn't make $1 million. Like, it's easy nowadays to gross $1 million. So I think sometimes it just serves as like a reminder that, you know, the why behind the brand, like getting a message of the gospel out there, getting a message of encouragement out there, getting a message of empowerment out there, getting a message of faith. When I see people wearing it, it's just like, it reminds me why I'm doing it. Like, I always say this, I don't do it for the income, I do it for the outcome. And I truly believe, like, when I see that, even the other day, I had to wake up at 5 a.m. to take a flight to Detroit. And I was so tired. I was kind of like discouraged because I had stayed up all night trying to, you know, just troubleshoot stuff. And I remember getting to the airport at 5 in the morning, and this guy is wearing 316. And I'm just like, wow, okay, God, I hear you. Like, you're reminding me my why. And so, and seeing that, it's just encouraging. Like, every time, I mean, I know we sell tons of shirts, we're always shipping orders, but when you actually see people wearing it, and I don't know you, I don't have to beg you to wear it, it just shows like you can really build anything, because as a creative, to see something come from your heart and your mind to fruition, and people to like rock that with so much like confidence, it's the most beautiful thing in the world. It's literally more beautiful than money.
I love that. And I love that you said, you know, it's more beautiful than the money that obviously comes with it as a buy factor, but having that impact. And I think that's something that's lasting. So even if you were to, you know, go off and do something else, I think that impact would carry with you, which is amazing. And I know that you mentioned a mentor. How important is a mentor?
Oh my God, mentors are the most important thing. I think having the right mentor can shave 10, 15, 20 years worth of struggle and problems off of you. I wish I had embraced that sooner. Like, I was always kind of a loner because I felt like, you know, I had to protect my idea, or I had to protect what I was doing. But I realized that, you know, what's for you is for you. People, especially when you get to a certain level, people are going to duplicate what you're doing. And honestly, they say imitation is the greatest form of flattery. Sometimes it's very annoying. You're like, you really just ripped off my whole idea. But it also shows that you're in a place where you're doing something that's making a mark. Because if you're making a mark, people are going to follow that. I mean, I think about how in my beginning, I followed what I saw Lifeway doing. I followed what I saw Mardell doing. And so that encourages me to just continue sitting in my creativity, because though people will duplicate you, they're going to always be behind, because they're going to be waiting on your next move so they can make their next move. So I just believe that, you know, having the right mentors and really associating yourself with people who have been where you're trying to go is probably the most important thing you can ever do. They say that you become the top 5 people you hang around. If you want to know your future, look at the people you're around. And so I had to really challenge myself to put myself around people that intimidate me. I had to challenge myself to put myself around people who, you know, make me feel uncomfortable, because if I'm always comfortable, then that means I'm going to be staying on the same level. But breakthrough comes when you're at a place where you're uncomfortable and you have to push past to the next place. And so as you level up, you're going to always feel like, okay, wait, this is bigger than me. But I always use the analogy of like a goldfish. If you put a goldfish in a little plastic bag, it'll only grow to the degree of that plastic bag. If you put a goldfish in a big 6-foot tank, it'll grow to the degree of that 6-foot tank. And so it's always like, God, I think it's time for me to rehome. Even with a plant, when you repot a plant, it allows its roots to spread out. And so it was once big in a smaller pot, but now you're putting it into a bigger pot, and it has to really start over and take root. And I know that plant probably feels intimidated, like, oh my God, there's so much space around me. But space means opportunity. It means opportunity to grow and thrive and become something bigger and better. And then, you know, once you outgrow that place, you get put in an even bigger pot. But, you know, I think that that's why they say success is a journey and not a destination, because that journey is always being put into open spaces.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I agree with that. You know, there's not really a end goal, you know, especially with ambitious entrepreneurs.
Yes.
It's typically like, okay, what's next? What's next? But I love that. And it can be intimidating sometimes. And especially with, at least for most entrepreneurs that I've known or that I've met, we tend to just be kind of in our own world a
Absolutely.
lot. And so I think, you know, getting out and being around those people who can challenge us is so important.
Yes.
It's so important.
Yes.
I know that you mentioned imposters. I see it all the time. I'm like, that looks like it, but it's not, you know? And so how do you deal with that? Because especially in the social media era, I see creators talking about, you know, people taking their content or copying their content. With you, obviously, a lot of people copy the style of your brand, which you have something that's very unique. So you can tell, okay, this is, you know, obviously you got this from, you know, 316.
Right.
But how do you deal with that?
You know, I remember last year I called my friend. She's like a prayer warrior. And I was like, can you just pray for me? And she started praying and she was like, this is going to sound really funny, but I hear God saying, lawyer up. And I was like, huh? Like, what? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to that. And I took that advice. I'm glad I did. Lawyer up. Like, I think that especially as creatives, like, we get so caught up in the creative side and the creative aspect of things that we don't really tend to care too much about the business aspect of things. Look, being an entrepreneur means that you're going to have to invest in stuff that you don't necessarily see the fruit from in that moment, but it's a foundational aspect. Trademarks, copyrights, all those things are things that people feel like, well, that's not really an immediate thing. That's more of a foundational thing. And I think as entrepreneurs, sometimes we want to invest in the stuff that, you know, we can see like quickly, you know, we can hold it in our hand because it's tangible. And things like trademarks and copyrights, it's not really tangible. I mean, you get a little paper from the trademark office saying you filed a trademark, but it's like, okay, do I really want to hire a lawyer and spend $3,000 on this when I can take that same $3,000 and I can go, you know, do a cool photo shoot and I can do, you know, cool this and buy a camera and all this. But listen, I am so glad that I invested in trademarks and copyrights and all those things because people have tried me on levels that I never knew I could be tried. And, you know, it's so beautiful when I can just have peace and say, you know what? Cease and desist. I call my lawyer up. I mean, now it's at the point where, like, I'll just send her somebody's post on Facebook, and 2 days later it's taken down because she's putting in all her legal language and stuff. And I'm just like, it's important. So I would admonish creators, business owners, make sure you have a budget set aside for attorneys and intellectual property and all those things, because I know, like, it seems like, oh, you know, that's a thing that's not really important. It's so important. I mean, like, we know all the situations going on with Kanye West right now. Yeah. And, you know, Adidas thinking that they're able, even though they own some of the bodies of the shoes, like, the name is what sold it. You know, like, the brand is Kanye. And I know, you know, people got disagreeing aspects about him and all those things, but I'm so glad to know that he had his intellectual property in a row. Some stuff we can argue, like Adidas may have had a leg up on some of the stuff, but at the end of the day, the name is, you know, more important than the style of the shoe. I mean, a lot of people bought the shoe because of the name. And so I think we can take lessons from that. Like, people can call Kanye crazy. They can call all these other people crazy. But listen, look at what these people are doing and really follow that blueprint of making sure that you have your trademarks in a row, making sure you have your copyrights, making sure that you own your name and your likeness.
And really protecting yourself.
Yes.
I see it too often, especially with Black creatives, where larger brands will come in and take their brand from them because they were not prepared. I mean, you don't have the resources just yet to be prepared, but knowing, you know, putting that as a priority at the top of the list, like, as soon as you can, get yourself protected. Yeah.
And there's so many law firms now, especially since, like, this whole movement and Black Lives Matter and all that. There's so many law firms that's offering, like, pro bono legal work for minority entrepreneurs. I always tell people, like, I posted this probably on Facebook 100 times this year, like, get your minority business certification. All it is paperwork. And I think a lot of us get intimidated by paperwork, you know, but it's literally just paperwork. Like, even for myself, I kept saying this last year, and I started the process, and I think they give you 3 months to complete the application. And I probably went a year not completing the application because I'm just like, this is so overwhelming. But I remember about 5 months ago, I came in the office. I closed my door and I told my business manager, Brittany, I said, nobody bother me for the next 2 days. I'm going to focus on submitting this paperwork and getting my certification. I'm glad to say that I got my minority business certification, and that has opened so many doors. Like, you know, we have all these grant opportunities and all these other things. And yes, you can apply for the grants, but when you have that certification, they putting you to the top of the pile. When you have the certification, like for, you know, government contracts and all that stuff, they're putting you to the top of the pile. It was literally a matter of paperwork and $100. Like, why not? And so, like you said earlier, there's no excuse why you can't do what you need to do. Like, people are literally giving away money. They're giving away their services to help minority businesses, you know, have a leg up. So if you don't have the money, invest time. Spend 2 hours a night, you know, that you're watching YouTube and Netflix and all of that. And, you know, research grant opportunities, research opportunities for minority business loans, research opportunities for your business to really make a impact in areas that are trying to help disadvantaged businesses. Look at, you know, law firms that are offering pro bono legal work for intellectual property and things like that. Like, there's literally no excuse now. Everything we need is out there. Like, it's a click of a button. And so, you know, as much as the internet is kind of cringy sometimes, it's also a place that if you use it for the right reasons, it could propel you 10 years ahead.
And that goes back to that resourcefulness that you need to have to really sustain.
Yes.
Because like you said, there's no excuses, especially with the amount of information that is literally at our fingertips.
Literally.
You know, you can go online and look up pretty much anything and find an answer.
Yes.
You know, so it's really just having that resourcefulness, and I love that, definitely. With your business, where do you see yourself in the next like 5 years?
That is such a good question. I got a message yesterday on Facebook, and this guy was like, he was like, have you ever thought about exiting? And I was like, huh? He was like, would you sell your business? And I was like, that's a really good question. The offer would have to be like super crazy, like something that I would be like almost, you know, faint from. Right. Because I do believe that, you know, this is a passion of mine. Now, there is so many businesses deep down on the inside of me that I want to start. I really want to get more back into teaching and stuff because, oh my God, this is not even like a low blow at anybody, but I took a few people's classes recently that are in the apparel space that are like viral and making millions of dollars on courses. And I was like, my heart broke because I'm like, yo, you're over here trying to tell people how to build $1 million t-shirt line. You have not ever even sold a t-shirt. Like, you're literally regurgitating information you found off of YouTube that's not real. And so, you know, I really want to like get deeper into that space, not even for the money aspect, because, you know, I'm good. Like, my bills are paid. But to help people, like, it's disheartening that so many people are out here just, and I know you know the course world, like you've taken millions of courses, and you see like these people be just, it's awful. It's like, it makes you want to like get in your car, put on your comfortable pants and go beat somebody up. Like, I mean, like, it make my west side of Detroit want to come out so bad. I'm like, really, bruh? Like, I bought this ebook. I won't say no names, but I'll show you later. Okay. I bought this ebook and I was like, it was $100, and it looked like homie just like went into like his notes on his iPhone and did screenshots and turned it into an ebook. And I'm just like, bruh, bruh. And I mean, like, raving about this whole funnels and stuff. And I'm like, if your funnel looks better than the end product, we have a problem. Yep. Like, you know, people think because I have and I'm like, y'all really think this is sustainable? And so in the next 5 years, I really see myself like, I want to travel the world. I want to impact people. I want to mentor people. I want to really build upon 316, not just the clothing aspect, but the lifestyle aspect, because 316 is a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle of faith. And so I really want to just encourage people to dream bigger. I want to encourage, you know, people like me who come from, you know, the crazy hood where, you know, you see people getting beat up with golf clubs in the middle of the street and you just got to sit on the porch and mind your business. Wow. I want to like go back in those communities and really show people like, look, I know that, you know, culture tells us that basketball and rap is the only way, but no, you can build a business. You can build a sustainable business. You can be a creative. I mean, like, people did not embrace me being a creative when I was younger. They talked about me like I was crazy. And I'm like, now those same people are my Facebook friends, and they're like, bro, I always believed in you. And I'm like, oh, I wish I could have recorded you when we were in 5th grade and you called me all kind of crazy stuff. I mean, like, people be commenting on my stuff, and I'd be like, why are you even my friend on Facebook? Like, you used to talk about me like crazy when I was in the playground writing stories and writing in my journal. And, you know, I was always, like, confident, like, I'm going to have a business one day. And people are like, oh, my God, bro, you said it, and we believed in you. And I'm like, no, you didn't. But I just really see myself, you know, traveling the world, empowering people. One of my biggest goals, I want to open like a hotel one day, LaGrande Hotel. I want to start my own line of wine, red wine. I mean, it's so much that I want to do, but I see 316 just, you know, being able to grow and flourish. But I see that, you know, really just being my passion project, really taking over not just Christian fashion, but taking over the fashion world, because I'm creative, I'm dope. Like, you know, it took me a long time to really own that, but like sometimes I look at my stuff and I'm like, bro, you really did that. And so I really see myself like dominating and really transcending the lines of culture and really like going into the fashion space and sitting with some of these big old brands. So y'all might see a couple new brands launch from me, you know, for those people in the secular world. I'm a sneak it in on them. But yeah, I got so much just on the inside of me. I just turned 30 recently, and I'm just like, I accomplished so much in my 20s. I'm like, I am so excited to taste and see what 30s is going to do for me.
I absolutely love that. And I feel like a big part of success is having that confidence in yourself and knowing how gifted you actually are. And a lot of people, I feel like they don't reach their full potential because they lack that confidence, you know? And so it's really awesome just to see that. And I hope people who are watching are able to feel that energy and understand how important that is.
Absolutely.
Now, I know that you said with 3, you have, you know, other passions that of course you would love to like dive into eventually. You spent, seems like majority of your life being an entrepreneur. Is there a balance between like enjoying other things, or is it always just business?
So it took me probably until this year to really realize that entrepreneurship is what I do. It's not necessarily who I am. And so I used to always, especially dating, when people ask you the question, what do you do for fun? I used to cringe because that question triggered me, because I'm like, I don't do anything for fun. And so this year I made a vow to myself, like, I'm going to start really exploring what is fun for Jaylen outside of building a business. So that, you know, like I said earlier, when I talked to my therapist about these highs and lows, if you have hobbies and stuff that you do for fun, you won't get so caught up in the lows because you'll have balance in life. And so I'm really learning that, you know, now I'm at a place where it's time for me to really, you know, figure out what it is in life that I enjoy. So I've been like really exploring stuff, and I love traveling. Like, I've been, like, people keep saying like, you've been on so many trips this year. And I'm like, yes, I have. Are you going for work? No, I'm not. I'm just going just to sit and explore. And, you know, I like to read and look at historical things. So like my goal is to really just travel the world and like go to these historical sites and museums and really just learn cultures and all those different things.
You were recently in Africa, right? How was that?
Oh my God, that was amazing. This was my 3rd time in South Africa. I'm actually about to go to Nigeria either this coming December or January. But I'm making it like next year. Listen, passport gonna be so stamped up, it ain't gonna make no sense. Like, and even if I have to go for business, you know, just to get me there, I'm going to also make sure that I take the time to really take personal time. So if, you know, it's 2 days of business, it's going to be 2 days of fun as well. So I'm learning balance. Like, even when I went to South Africa, we did a day or two of business and ministry stuff. And then I spent like 6 days just chilling and really, you know, finding things that made me happy. Africa was amazing though. I almost moved. I almost didn't come back. I'm like, for $50,000, I can have a luxury 4-bedroom penthouse apartment. Oh, wow. Like, whoa. I remember meeting this lady. She was like, I spend $4,000 a month. I was like, what does that get you? She was like, I have a driver, I have a maid, I pay my mortgage, I have a chef. I'm like, where do I sign up at? Like, this is freaking amazing. Yeah. And I mean, especially with everything going on in the US right now, like, I think that it's important for us as people, especially people of color, that, you know, we set up homes in other places. Like, it's nothing wrong with living in 2 places. And so that's another thing that's major on my goal list. Like, I want to buy some property in Africa. I want to buy some property in Australia. I want to be able to, you know, wake up and say, hey, I want to spend 3 months in London. hey, I want to spend 3 months in Nigeria and be able to do that.
Right.
And my business is still successfully run because I always tell people there's a difference between being an entrepreneur and being self-employed. People think because you're self-employed, but if you always have to be at your business for it to run properly, that means you're not building something that's sustainable and scalable. I mean, think about when, like, we talk about Walt Disney as if he was here 5 years ago. Walt Disney been dead like 100 years, but like we're still so empowered by his story. But his company is still running and thriving, and so I almost had to check myself and say, you're gonna have to trust people. You're gonna have to have your heart broken. You're gonna have to be screwed over a couple times, but that's what it takes to build a business that's sustainable, that outlives you. That's what legacy is all about. And so the next 50 years of my life, or however long God has me on this earth, I'm going to be dedicated to making sure that I leave a legacy that when I'm no longer here, people will still be talking about 316. People will still be talking about the impact that I had, because that's the most important echoing message, even in the Bible, is legacy, succession. And so I think as entrepreneurs, we have to really start thinking about that. Like, I know that, we want to flaunt and show stuff for social media, but let's be honest. A lot of us would not be here if it wasn't for the people that came before us and blazed that trail.
Absolutely.
And I love how even in the Bible, like, Moses knew when it was time for him to step down and give the reins to Joshua. He only got a glimpse of the promised land. Imagine doing all that work and you only get a glimpse of it. But he was man enough to know, I'm going to get a glimpse of this, but the person coming after me will be able to enjoy the fullness of this. So I even say for myself, like, I know my parents didn't really dive completely into entrepreneurship. I know my grandma didn't dive completely into her ideas, but she was woman enough and strong enough to know that I'm going to blaze the trail. And even though I only get a glimpse of this, my grandson will be able to live in the fullness of this. And so I thank God that though I'm able to live in the fullness of my life, I want to get a glimpse of what's to come for the next generation, so that when I have kids and they have kids, that they can say, because Grandpa Jaylen did this, because great-great-grandpa Jaylen did this, I'm able to live like this.
That's powerful. That's powerful. We always talk about legacy, like on social media, you see it talking about like generational wealth and things like that, but not a lot of people realize that they're stuck in that self-employment cycle, and you can't really pass that down. You can't, right?
No.
Because once you're gone or once you retire, you get sick, the business is done, and so being able to learn how to build a brand that's separate from yourself, I think is so important. And not having everything just be so heavy predicated on just you. Was that difficult with kind of separating yourself from the brand and putting trust into other people with your company? I mean, it's like your baby, right? So I'm sure that was difficult.
It's extremely difficult. I mean, every day I have to remind myself, like, Jay, this is bigger than you. And so, like I said, you're going to have to take some L's. You're going to have to deal with some craziness. I mean, I've dealt with some craziness. I mean, like, I'd be like, oh, if I wasn't saved, I would smack somebody upside the head. But, I just strongly believe that when we recognize it's bigger than us and we really execute what it means to live out legacy, like, not just because it sounds cute to post, I'm making generational wealth and I'm making, but what if your kids don't want to inherit what you're doing? Can they still sit on the board and collect royalties from that? Like, and that's why, getting back to the intellectual property thing, that's why all of that is so important. Like, I have all of my intellectual property in a whole separate entity because I believe that my brain is going to be the thing that makes me the millions and billions. I believe that if I put that under myself, that's not really leaving generational wealth. If something happens to me, cool. All my intellectual property held up in a holding company, when I have kids or my nieces and nephews or whatever that looks like, even if they don't want to take on the business because of the intellectual property, if somebody comes on and say, I'll purchase 316, well, I still own all the IP, so they're going to still be able to collect royalties for the next 300 years. It's so important. It's so important.
I don't know if you guys might have to rewind that part. I don't know if you caught the game that he really just gave y'all right now. So rewind it and then come back. But no, that's really true, and people don't really think about what it truly means outside of a Facebook post.
Right.
To build generational wealth.
Yes.
And so just to hear that, I think it's amazing. I think that's going to help somebody who's watching this right now, because that's huge. Now, when it comes to having a faith-based brand, social media, the world, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
How is that? Do you ever get discouraged, or is there ever, I guess, any type of like backlash from being a, very open faith-based brand?
Yeah, so I mean, you can literally we run tens of thousands of dollars in ads every month, and the craziest thing is you can literally go to our ads and see some crazy, outrageous comments. Sometimes I just have to block it and not even read it because I'm like, really, yo, listen, 316, nobody has the level of quality of products that we have, and unfortunately, for some reason, people in the Christian space, they always assume Christianity was cheap. And, they always assume it with like, oh, you have to give this away, or, oh, you have to donate it, or, oh, you have to. And I'm just like, that is the worst thing in the world. Like, every time I read my Bible and I read about heaven, it talks about a place where streets are paved with gold, gates are made of pearls, mansions, and all these royal, lavish, luxury things. And I'm like, how dare you come to me and say, y'all charging $50 for a shirt, but you're wearing a Nike shirt that's $100, that's half the quality. And so what I've learned is I don't care about the backlash. I'm going to still do what I do because there are more people that are for it than against it. I mean, obviously, we wouldn't even be where we were if there weren't people supporting us. So I think I used to get caught up in the backlash. I used to get caught up in, people saying, attacking us and all of that. But I stand boldly on my faith at the end of the day. I've even had people like reach out to me like, bro, your stuff is so dope. Like, you should just do this blank. You should. No, because then that takes away the image of what my brand stands for. And like I said, I've seen people give their life to Christ through this brand. I've seen people's lives change. I've seen people, testify to us like, I was battling this sickness and I was wearing this, and this encouraged me to keep fighting and keep pushing. And so if that's how I have to make my mark and I have to deal with, whatever backlash comes with that, I'm okay with it because, like I said, I know I'm in the right place doing the right thing. And so I think, like, especially, like you said, with social media, people want to get so caught up on who hating on them and who's listen, like, whatever you focus on, that's what's going to magnify. And so I've chose to focus on the people that support us. I've chose to focus on the people that rock with us. I chose to focus on who my tribe is. Like, I'm authentic to my tribe, and my tribe, they understand my message and my voice and what I'm doing. And so I don't care if somebody else don't understand that. It's just like Nike. Everybody don't rock with Nike. Right. Everybody don't rock with Adidas. Everybody don't rock with all these other brands. So it's like they have to be authentic to their tribe. First off, in business, and this is, the game, like you're supposed to have a target market to begin with. Right. And so I feel like most people who are distracted in that is the people who probably come to you like, everybody's my target market. Everybody ain't your target market. If everybody your target market, you will never have a successful, sustainable business. Yeah. And so I've just learned to focus on who my target is because there are millions of people that fit that target. And I can sustain my business with those millions of people. So the other few people who are like, oh, no, we're not doing that, hey, go support who you need to support. I mean, y'all support these stores with skeletons and skulls and sharkas and all this other stuff with no problem. So if y'all can be bold about that, I can be bold about my faith.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, Jaylen, I'm not going to hold you too long. I so appreciate all the game that you just dropped.
Yes.
But everyone who gets interviewed, we ask this one question before we wrap it up. And so I want to ask you, what does it mean to be a boss in your own words?
I think to be a boss means to be a servant. And I know that's so opposite. It's almost like a juxtaposition because a lot of us think like when we become a boss that, we get to really lead. But I think the best way to lead is by being a great follower. I think that what I've learned in hiring people is I hire my weaknesses. So I hire people that are strong in areas that I'm not strong. I know I'm strong in creativity. I know I'm strong in reverse engineering. I know I'm strong in all those areas. I'm not so strong in administration. I'm not so strong in, physical labor. I'm not so strong in those areas. And so I believe being a boss is to have a heart of a servant because sometimes being a boss means you're going to eat last. Sometimes being a boss means you're going to have to make sacrifices for the greater good of those around you. Sometimes being a boss means that you're going to have to set aside your own ambition. You're going to have to set aside your own attitude. You're going to have to set aside your own craziness. You're going to have to set aside so many things in order to serve the greater good of what you're building. And so I believe being a boss is being a servant. I believe it's being called to serve the people that you're essentially leading. We learn the greatest form of servant leadership through the way Jesus led the disciples. He served. He washed their feet. I mean, like, come on, this is Jesus Christ. And so I believe being a boss is being a servant.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Jaylen, thank you so much. You gave amazing information. Just hearing about your story, I feel like it's going to inspire and empower so many young entrepreneurs who are just trying to, get their feet wet and start their business. They have a brand, they have a vision, and I think that you're an amazing example. And so I just want to thank you for even just, what you do on social media and being open to, sharing your business and sharing your journey with people. I think that's going to make a huge impact. So I appreciate that.
Yes.
Jaylen, where can someone find you and your brand if they were wanting to look you up?
Yeah, so we're 316 Collection on all social media, and then my personal social media is Jaylen LaGrande. It's spelled like LaGrande. But it's Jaylen LaGrande on all social media. And then we recently just opened up a really dope concept store at Stonebriar Mall like a week ago in Frisco. So for those of you in Texas, stop by, check out that store. It's literally the most beautiful store in the mall. And I'm not just saying that. Like, even the mall said it. Like, they're like, yo, how did y'all design this concept? So, yeah, like, you can find us on all social media platforms, 316 Collection. And then you can find me, Jaylen LaGrande, on all social media platforms.
Awesome. I'll have to check out that store.
Yes.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. This is another episode of The Boss Seat. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more amazing interviews like the one we just had with Jaylen. And we're going to catch you guys on the next one.